His Excellency Balis Comporo, I beg your pardon if I've misspelled your name, Mr. President, President of Burkina Faso. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président de la Conférence,
Mr. President,
Excellences, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement,
Excellencies, heads of state and government,
distingués délégués,
distinguished delegates,
après 2 ans d'âpres négociations
after
entamées
2
à Bali
years
sur
of
l'avenir
difficult
du
negotiations
climat
which
mondial,
began in Bali
le
on
monde
the
entier,
future of the
particulièrement les
world
populations
climate,
africaines,
the
attendent de
entire world, and in
Copenhague
particular the peoples of
que des
Africa,
réponses adéquates
expect
soient
from
apportées à
Copenhagen
leurs
that
légitimes
suitable
préoccupations.
responses will
Je
be
voudrais donc vous saluer
coming
ainsi que le
forward
gouvernement et le peuple
for
danois
their legitimate concerns. I would like to thank you, as well as the government and the people of Denmark, for the warm hospitality extended to my delegation. Mr. President, delegates, global warming is the main cause of climate change, the manifestations of which are being strongly felt by our populations through such things as extreme climate phenomena, in particular very strong winds, droughts, heat waves, and floods. Thus, Burkina Faso, as is the case for like other countries in Africa and in the rest of the world, was struck in September 2009 by unprecedented floods. The questions without a satisfactory response from peoples, as well as the questions that we regularly get, the strong probability of a dark climate future for Sahelian countries such as ours, all bring us to a point where we consider and we reaffirm our right to climate justice, to sustainable development, to well-being. This boils down to our right to life. Ladies and gentlemen, my country supports the common position of Africa consistent with the principle of the Convention on the Historic Responsibility, common but differentiated. Burkina Faso therefore expects from developed countries specific figures for their commitments of reduction of their greenhouse gases of at least 45% by 2020 compared to 1990 in order to ensure that the average temperatures will not rise by more than 1.5 degrees C. Developing countries are also encouraged to take action to be able to reduce their emission trends. I would therefore like to invite emerging countries to make voluntary reduction efforts of their greenhouse gases, and based on the performance of their economies and it would be of its economy, it would be most opportune if the Republic of China, Taiwan, could have the opportunity of participating significantly in the effort being made by the international community to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations. Mr. President, this Copenhagen conference is a decisive step in order to reflect together on other development models based on low-carbon emission economies within a context of sustainable development. On the African continent, the diversity of ecosystems means that we have to take targeted action because of the ecological specificities. The forests of the Congo Basin absolutely must be maintained and preserved. In much the same way, the degradation of ecosystems and the lands of the Sahel and the savannas will require a robust contribution from the international community. The coastal erosion, in fact, is one of the concerns to which we will also have to find appropriate responses. This is why Burkina Faso, as a sort of a prelude to these negotiations, hosted in October 2009 the World Sustainable Development Forum. The idea was to reflect on the opportunities provided by climate change in the perspective of sustainable development. The forum led to the Ouagadougou Declaration, which consolidates the common African position. Burkina Faso commits itself to take the conclusions of the Ouagadougou Forum, among which we have, first of all, the strategic reevaluation of the support for African agriculture before the Millennium Development Goals deadline, with a view to a sustainable management of lands, water resources, animal resources, and the promotion of ecologically sustainable agriculture. Then there is the setting up of an African climate insurance agency, which will be equipped with a financing mechanism for the mitigation of the deleterious effects of climate phenomena. Now, as to the financial issue, the Forum has called on me to organize African financial meetings during the course of 2010 in order to come up with the economic regulations, financial regulations rather, and the necessary compensation for sustainable development of the continent. Mr. President, in this common effort, struggling against the climate change, combating climate change at the national level, all parties have to become involved, and thus, within the regional cooperation, on the regional cooperation level, Burkina Faso has launched a vast partnership program for the sustainable management of land and a national effective integration initiative for the climate change and strategies and development plans. Concerns my country is particularly specifically affected by the pernicious effects of climate change. It is absolutely essential for action to be taken within the framework of the Convention in order to finance the NAPAs, National Action Program Adaptation, to finance the total cost of the NAPAs, take into account the complementarity of the different mountain forest ecosystems, the savanna, mountain, Sahel, in the new mechanism of the RED, reduction of emissions through degradation and deforestation, and integrate conservation, to respond effectively, also to anticipate climate phenomena, promote alternative energies, in particular solar energy, hydroelectric energy, which Africa has a lot of. We are here, Mr. President, honorable delegates, in order to contribute to a success of the negotiations in Copenhagen, in order to arrive at a commitment which is based on justice, equity, the cardinal values that African countries are very much attached to. It is high time that action-oriented, responsible, and vigorous measures in the area of capacity building, transfer of technology, and a financial mechanism, that all these should be taken. We reaffirm the urgency of an adaptation fund, which has to be a standing fund, which has to be predictable and sufficient in order to be able to face the pressing needs of developing countries. Awaiting the effective implementation of such a fund, Burkina Faso welcomes the French initiative, which is the Climate Justice Plan, which is in support of African countries, least developed countries, and small island countries which are particularly vulnerable to climate change. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, I would like to reaffirm the importance and the need to maintain and strengthen what has been acquired by the Convention and the Kyoto Protocol in the Copenhagen process, especially as regards the targets with figures of the developed countries for the second commitment period. It would also be appropriate to stress the efforts that need to be made by all countries based on their respective capacities. At this precise moment, I would like to express the hope to see all of humanity committed in the quest for a global solution to the consequences of climate change. Copenhagen must not fail. In this perspective, I would like to call on industrialized countries and remind them of their historic responsibility, because they have simultaneously the technology and the financial resources to be able to face the needs of mitigation and adaptation to climate change. Our conference shall become a part of the annals of our era in order to mark a decisive step towards a better future for us and for future generations. I thank you.